it's just an example. Purdue losing to Fresno State is okay. We can still win the Big Ten West. But me,
Billy Napier gets fired. I'm just kidding.
hey, really the best time of the year. I will be seated watching Red Zone for 7 hours on Sunday. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to an episode of Backyard Banter. Johnny, James, Tanner, the last official football show for 2024/2025. Very sad, but it was not. I was going to say quite the game. It really wasn't quite the game. I was more than just flummoxed seeing the Chiefs get dominated like that. It was really incredibly surprising. But we're going to hear from the two handsome gentlemen on my right of the screen. And we're going to start with Tanner. Tanner, I mean, just what's your biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl?
Probably just how good the Eagles are. I mean, that roster is loaded with talent. They have the best offensive line in the NFL, to me. Maybe the Lions was better. They have the best defensive line. Like the Chiefs' offensive line is not a below average offensive line. It's a pretty quality offensive line that the Chiefs have. And Philly's interior rush was just able to get home every single time Mahomes dropped back. And I mean, me and James especially know this as Bears fans. We've seen it so much the last couple of years. When your quarterback has no time to throw and it comes from the interior, when it comes from the middle of the line, he can't step up in the pocket, and there's really not much you can do. It ruins everything. And Mahomes was not able to step up in the pocket at all. Jalen Carter was dominant. He was winning double teams. And it just put other guys in one-on-one matchups on that line. So, to me, it was just how dominant the Eagles were up front. When you're playing in the Super Bowl and you're that much better than the opponent in the trenches, like, that's a statement. I mean, the Eagles to me looked like they were just a bunch of dudes who were just bigger and better and stronger, and we're just going to run over you all day long. And that was pretty remarkable to me. Mahomes didn't play very well either, which was kind of shocking. But shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles, man. Great team. I think one of the better Super Bowl champions we've seen in a little while, just because like they went 14-3. They just absolutely dominated the playoffs. And then you're playing the two-time defending champs, and you beat them like that. Like, to me, this is one of the better teams we've seen in a long, long time. This Eagles team, they really proved to me that this is an all-time team that we just watched. And Saquon Barkley, man, best football player in the NFL.
Yeah, it was like it's one of those games where, frankly, I've watched a lot of them, watching the Bears every Sunday, where it's like not very thrilling, right? I mean, the first few, quarter, first half maybe, just because you know what the Chiefs are capable of. I think you'd be dumb to not think that you thought there was a run in them. But the Eagles, man, they shut that run out immediately. If you would have told me that the Eagles were going to rush for maybe 140 yards, something like that.
135.
Yeah, 135 yards, and they were going to dominate the game, I would say you're crazy, right? Because frankly, Johnny hates Jalen Hurts. I hate is a strong word. He's said some things against him before, but Jalen Hurts, man, he came out to play. He was unbelievable. Made a lot of good throws. I look at Patrick Mahomes' game, and frankly, I don't think I've ever seen an unhappier person than Travis Kelce. The guy looked like he didn't want to be there. I'm sure getting destroyed doesn't help, but like that connection has been off, frankly, all year. I mean, we've been seeing that since the beginning of the season. Like, that connection's off. And so I just look at the Eagles. We knew roster-wise they were one of the best rosters in football. And I like that they put it all together. That defense was unbelievable. Mahomes takes 6 sacks. I think a few of those he was on him, frankly. But at the same time, like, the Eagles on all sides of the ball were just better. They were the best team in the NFL. And Jalen Hurts, man, he must watch Backyard Banter. I think it's being proven that he's watching Backyard Banter because he was unbelievable, very good. But yeah, the other thing that I was a little disappointed with, and I know being, time and score and all that, the Chiefs completely abandoned the run early. Like, I don't know how many carries they had, but it wasn't more than, I don't think even know if they had 15.
11 carries. No running back had more than 10 yards.
So that was like one of those things where, was glaring to me. And I understand time and score a lot in that second half, but it was just why are you going to abandon the run that early when you do have good running backs? Not great running backs, but good running backs. And the Chiefs also did what we thought they were going to do: load the box, make Hurts throw the ball, and he did, and he hit. So shout out to Cooper DeJean. Pick six, huge. He's all over TikTok. He's trending. I hate Iowa naturally, but it's like, shout out to him. And it was great. It was great to see, honestly, frankly, the Chiefs get dismantled. I think most of the country could have been pretty happy about that, but oh well.
Yeah, but both of you are right. But if you'd have told me before the game, from the Eagles standpoint, that Saquon would only have 57 yards rushing, and he was averaging 2.7 yards a rush, and that Jalen Hurts threw a pick on the plus side of the 50, I'd have been, they lost. Like, they lost the game. There's no way that they would have won because, the Eagles' defense has been good. Their defense line has been good, but let's not act like their defensive line has been this ridiculous all season, because it hasn't. There has been problems with their edge rushers. The guy they got from the Jets didn't get a sack for the first 10 weeks of the season. Jalen Carter's always been ridiculous. Jordan Davis is more of a run stopper, but he even got in there a little bit on the fun. And Tom Brady said something I thought was super interesting when he got to Tampa. He was like, the number one thing for an offense lineman, try not to get beat quick and do not get beat inside. Because when you get beat inside, there's nothing you can do. You guys both said it. When you get beat inside, you can't step up in the pocket. It makes it even harder to throw it away. If you're a tackle, if you get beat outside, okay, gives you a split second to maybe step up, throw that ball away. But, man, Mahomes had no time. They got a first down on the first play from scrimmage and then not another one until the second half. That is just dominant stuff. And there's the other thing that was just so stunning. The Eagles did it without blitzing. They blitzed 0.0%. They did not blitz a single time in the Super Bowl. And that's crazy to think about. It's almost like what the Bucs did at the Chiefs a few years ago in the Super Bowl. That was more coming from that outside because the Bucs had Shaq Barrett and JPP coming, and there's nothing he could do. And this was even worse because Mahomes made some unreal throws in that game to even give him a chance. He didn't do that. In fact, both the interceptions were, the second one, the guy got bull rushed on the edge, and it hit Mahomes as he was throwing. But the one to DeJean, he didn't see DeJean, and the nickel position in football is so interesting because it's you're not fast enough to be a corner, probably not thick enough to be a linebacker or a safety, and so DeJean just fits in perfectly in that position, and he helps guard that long side of the field. So, there's hash marks from the left hash mark. DeJean is over here. And he played that position. He's played it so well our season, but the Super Bowl, again, he was such a difference maker. And Quinyon Mitchell, the other corner, who is literally one of the best corners in the NFL, is a rookie out of Toledo. He was unbelievable this year. And then Vic Fangio, I said it with Spagnuolo. It's no one wants to give these guys a head coaching chance. I know Fangio went to Denver and he wasn't any good, and Spagnuolo was a head coach in the early 2000s, wasn't any good. But these guys are dominating the sport, and it's super super impressive to see. I never gave Jalen Hurts any real hate. I just think, and I still think to an extent, that he's a system quarterback. He greatly benefits from playing behind that offensive line, with those weapons. But I liked how much they used him as a runner. I thought he looked extra quick, and I understand the Super Bowl, everyone's going to be trying the hardest, but I thought he looked as fast as he had since he was at Oklahoma. He was really moving on some of those designed runs. But those are my a few of the biggest takeaways. I was shocked, honestly, when it was all happening, but I wasn't shocked that the Eagles won, but definitely shocked in the way that it came out, and shocked that the Chiefs didn't make any adjustments. If you look at their protection from the first half to the second half, it was virtually the same. They gave some chip help here and there, but for the most part, it was Joe Thuney. You're not normally a left tackle, but you're out there. Good luck. Right. And he needed it, and he got destroyed. But Tanner, you said it right. A super deserving champion. Shout out Howie Roseman, Florida Gator legend. Not really a Florida Gator legend. He just went to Florida. But and for building that roster. And, they did a pseudo rebuild last year when, frankly, their team wasn't up to their standard. And they went to Tampa and they got blasted in the wild card. And they completely rebuilt their secondaries through the draft. They got Zach Bonnet. How good is he? He might be the best defensive player in the NFL outside of edge rushers this year.
Yeah.
And it doubles down on, if I'm building a team, you 100% need the quarterback first, but man, I'm going to go get an edge rusher. That's why if I'm the Bucs, I'm throwing everything at Myles Garrett. because protecting the quarterback and getting to the quarterback wins you football games. And the Eagles showed that more than anything in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's exactly what Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen have said in their introductory press conferences.
So you're saying you don't need to go get a third receiver?
I'd
need
rather build in the trenches
Need
first.
to go get an edge rusher, maybe a guard or two.
And frankly, like we're entering we've entered an era of football where it's like who can score 40, right? Whereas when the Bears won a Super Bowl in '85, it was they're the best defense, right? But I look at this
They still
Eagles
scored
team.
40.
Well, correct, but like, and maybe one day, right? Maybe one day, but like. You look at this Eagles team, and they could win on both sides of the ball, and they built that. And so, like I'm telling you, is this going to happen? No, it's not. But when I hear a rumor of that Micah Parsons might be available for a blockbuster trade, it's like, well, you'd be dumb to not offer everything for a generational talent like that on that side of the ball. Because truthfully, I think every team has a capability of scoring a lot of points, but man, like defenses can be kind of hard to come by. And like those defensive, just like greats in the league that we have right now, like you said, like Myles Garrett, like if that guy's available, go get him. Go try to get him. And you know what? Like the Eagles, they didn't really have that go get him guy, but they found the pieces that they needed and they hit. And when in doubt, draft Georgia defenders, right? Like sure, they're not great drivers. They're not but boy, they can play. And I mean, Jalen Carter, talk about a guy that, I mean, I would not want to make that guy unhappy at all because, frankly, that guy he is a behemoth of a man that is incredibly good at his position. But they were a lot of fun to watch, and I think defense is something that, you know, it's fun. You know, the Bears have had a good defense, you know, and hopefully that flips and we can start scoring 40 points. But I think when you hear about these guys that become available, like the Myles Garrett, and yeah, Micah Parsons is probably going to be a Cowboy, but like when you hear a rumor like that, it's like, yeah, give everything you have.
Yeah, and you know, you said just draft Georgia defenders. It used to be draft Alabama secondary,
right?
You know, Nick Saban used to. I mean, everyone was virtually a hit, and look who won Defensive Player of the Year this year: Alabama secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, they got like 10 guys that are studs. But anyway, we're going to continue with our grids as Tanner Sterry made a grid. And James was nervous about the grid, you know, pre-show. So as Tanner gets it pulled up, this is kind of there we go.
Before you freak out, so this is Final Four teams, the last 10 Final Four. So you're naming the last 40 teams essentially to make the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Both you guys, it's going to be different. Both you guys are going to work at the same time, kind of working together. And both of you have to name at least one from each Final Four. I included conferences. And you each like combined, so like Johnny could miss one in the Final Four, and James could miss one before like you're done with that that year. So it's kind of like a collaborative effort here. So take it away. You can start wherever.
All right, James. I'm not going to get any wrong. So wherever you want to start as your most least confident.
I think it's one of those things where you kind of let me go until I don't know.
Okay. Well, I want to say 2014 because that's the last time Florida made a national championship. Okay. Made a national championship.
I prefer to not start there, but
I'm just going to start there, Tanner. I'm going to rip 2014. I was Wisconsin, Kentucky, Florida.
Remember, you both have to like at least get one.
We both have to say one.
Okay. Yeah. I'll leave one. James, I'm going to leave who won the national championship. So it was Florida, Kentucky, and Wisconsin were the three. And Kentucky was in the national championship with that. It was in Dallas. But, all right, go where you want to, James.
Wait, but I have to. Did he say it?
No, I didn't say it. But we don't have. We can go back to that one. You start.
You left who won the Natty in 2014.
Yeah. You start.
Yeah. No, I know. It was UConn.
There we go.
There we go.
National championship. I'm fine. I'm fine. Yeah. Like we're good. You just want to go 2015.
Yeah.
The ones that I can think of, I just know Duke won.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think they beat Wisconsin, but frankly, the rest I'm not sure of.
The Duke beat Wisconsin, and the Duke beat Michigan State in their Final Four, and then that was the undefeated Kentucky team that lost to Wisconsin.
Okay.
Wisconsin
ripping through it.
Come on. 2016 was one of my favorite national championships, so I know that. That's Nova versus Carolina.
Yep.
Johnny.
Nova beat Oklahoma. That was one of my favorite teams. I was actually talking about that Oklahoma team yesterday. And then this is the one I'm not 100% sure on. I'm pretty sure that North Carolina beat Syracuse.
That is correct. That was two ACC teams
Yeah.
in that Final Four.
That was the Syracuse team that upset Virginia. They were like a 10 seed. They
Yeah,
upset
yeah. The
Virginia in the
Syracuse
Elite
team
Eight.
was a 10 seed, and they beat. That was the year Middle Tennessee beat Michigan State
Yep.
15-2.
Yeah, that was a fun year.
And Syracuse kind of ran through to the Elite Eight and beat number 1 Virginia in the Elite
Yeah.
Eight.
So 2017, I can think of 3. For some reason, the Pac-12 one is slipping my mind.
All right, the Pac-12 is Oregon, so rip the other 3.
I think North Carolina beat Gonzaga.
Yep.
And then the SEC one.
They beat Florida in the Elite Eight.
Yeah. My heart's telling me, which sometimes it's wrong. Was that like a 6-seeded like South Carolina or something?
Yes,
They were 7, but yeah.
They were 7. Yes, South Carolina made a big run.
So
They had actually
Darius Thornwell.
Yeah, who else did they have? They had another stud on that team. That South Carolina team, before that their program had never been to the second week, and they'd never been to the Sweet 16.
No, that was a really fun team.
They were fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, 2018. I mean, you got to mention Loyola. I mean, shout out to them. Johnny, do you want to? I think I can do this one, but if you want to go,
no, rip it. If you got it, I mean, I'll name. Kansas was the Big 12 team.
Yeah, and then Michigan lost to Villanova.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
That Villanova team, I said this might be a hot take. I think that 2018 Villanova team would have beat last year's UConn team. Like I thought that Villanova team was so freaking good.
I think when looking at the last 10 years here, to me, the 3 best teams, and I don't really want to say in what order, is last year's UConn, a team you haven't mentioned yet. I'll let you know when you have, and then yes, this Villanova team.
I mean, that Villanova team was ridiculous.
Dante DiVincenzo that year was
coming off the bench.
Unconscious though, coming off the bench. All right, 2019. Frankly, I think I'm going to struggle with 2019. I know Virginia's in there.
Yes,
Virginia won.
Yep.
I know that because of Reese, whatever. The Big Ten team, I have Michigan State, but I can't remember who Virginia beat. So I've got Virginia and Michigan State, and I don't remember who else.
Michigan or Virginia beat Texas Tech. And that Texas Tech team was one of my favorites ever. I mean, that was a really fun team. And then Virginia shouldn't have even been in the national championship because they should have lost to Auburn. Yep. Shout out Bruce Pearl again. They had Harper. I mean, they just that team. Chumo Kiki towards ACL, or else maybe they would have won. But yeah, 2019 was one of my favorite Final Fours, and I wish that they'd go back to Minnesota. I think Minnesota hosted a really good Final Four and a really good Super Bowl, in my opinion.
They did, and that was honestly probably the best tournament just all around we've seen. That tournament had a lot of upsets, a lot of buzzer beaters. That was a fun tournament.
Frankly, and I'm sure you guys know this, and if you don't, next year I think it's in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure they're doing all of the NCAA national championships there, the same weekend.
Oh, yeah. That'll be cool.
So the D3 and D2 Natty is the day before.
Yeah. And
then the day after is the Division 1. Talk about – I think the Division 3 and Division 2 are where the Pacers play.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, the Natties and,
Lucas Oil.
But, talk about – we should go. We are basketball fanatics, and we should find ourselves to Indianapolis. So that's awesome.
That would be awesome.
I know someone who lives not too far from Indianapolis.
Oh, good. I'm glad you have connections.
Good people there.
Yeah, good. It's the Hoosier State. So, but all right. So 2021, one of the best teams I remember watching was Baylor.
Yes,
they beat Gonzaga. That was a great national championship. And frankly, I know the other team, and they are in the Pac-12. And the only reason I remember them is because I think they were a really high seed, and it's UCLA. But I can't think of the other one.
It was Houston, and
Yeah,
Houston's kind of a forgotten Final Four team because they got
Yeah.
blasted by Baylor, but
Yeah.
that was a good Houston team. And
Yeah,
UCLA,
that Baylor Houston game was unreal. It was like, are they? And frankly, they didn't lose, right? But it was like, is Baylor going to lose this game? No.
that Baylor team was unbelievable, and
Yeah.
they waxed Houston. And UCLA, James means high in the sense they were like an 11 seed, not like high.
Right.
Like
Right. Yeah.
I think that Baylor team is one of the 3 best teams we've seen in the last decade.
I agree. I would rank the UConn, Baylor, and Villanova in whatever order you want. I mean, they were pretty
I mean,
unreal.
Jared Butler that year was just.
Yeah.
I mean, you thought the guy was going to go on and become like a Hall of Fame NBA player. Like he was.
I mean, and they had Davion Mitchell and Maceo Teague, like these other studs.
No, they were tough.
And then their bigs were so athletic too. And then they had the what's his face off the bench, the white dude that looked like he
Matthew Meyer,
Matthew
Yeah,
Meyer.
transferred to Illinois the year after.
LJ Cryer.
No,
LJ Cryer, who's still playing college basketball.
Yes.
Unreal. Yeah, unreal.
All right, the next one.
The next one's boring. It's the Blue Bloods, right? So it's Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, and then you can rip the other one.
Villanova.
Yeah.
That was I thought that was a good Final Four too. Again, they should go to New Orleans more often. Like I feel like they do the same rotation too much. Like I feel like that they're in like Houston and or San Antonio too much, and then Indianapolis like too much.
Yeah. I was actually talking to our basketball coach here at Illinois College yesterday about it. Like, and that's when he mentioned that the D3 one's going to Indy as well. And he said his favorite one was like Minneapolis. He said they put on a good, like Phoenix was really good. He kind of just wishes, one, it never made sense for them to go way out west like they did, right? So like find a centralized location. Indiana's a good spot. But yeah, I think that I'm still not over the fact that weekend could be amazing if you're a basketball fan.
For sure.
All right, 2023. So
this was a crazy year.
Yeah, UConn won.
Mm-hmm.
This is the year where there wasn't a top 3 seed, right? Like no one. Yeah, okay. So FAU was in it, and UConn won. But Johnny, just take it away.
UConn beat San Diego State, and then Miami was the ACC team.
Oh, Miami, yeah.
Yeah, shout out Colin, man. Colin called that Miami team going far.
Yeah, he did. I mean, yeah, this one's the probably the easiest because it's fresh in our mind. But I can only think of 3 teams actually.
What team are you missing?
I'm missing so UConn, Alabama, NC State. I can't think of the 4th one.
Yeah, the 4th one is irrelevant now.
It's irrelevant.
Definitely not making a second weekend this year.
Right. Oh my God.
The Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah.
Good grid, team. That was a fun grid.
That was fun. Yeah, I'm glad I had help with Johnny because there were a few in there that, frankly, I don't know if I would have gotten.
James, you did really well.
But the conferences helped. I mean, if there was no conferences, I was struggling.
I wanted something that was college basketball, but I didn't. Like, this is the first grid in college basketball we've done in like a year, so I didn't want it to be like difficult. I want it to to be collaborative.
No Caden Bates Diop mentioned.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that went to Ohio State. That will
I'll never forget where he went to college.
Never forget where he went to college. Yeah, some irrelevant player, but we know that he went to Ohio State.
Yeah, it's almost that time, man. I mean, like you said, he's the first March Madness grid. Their March Madness are my favorite grids. Or college basketball in general. And with football over, we're going to be talking a lot more. College basketball, and not just because the Florida Gators have the best one in college basketball right now. And all of our teams are probably going to be top 6 seeds, depending on what Illinois wants to do if they actually want to play basketball.
Don't even put them in the tournament.
But let's talk a little college basketball before we get out of here. Obviously, yesterday was a few insane games. The Big Ten. Tanner, I was interested when I saw this, and I knew I was going to ask you this, so I didn't text you. Does the loss to Michigan sting a little less with Michigan State losing?
Has to. I think it stings more, honestly, because Purdue still plays Michigan State. We don't play Michigan again. So, like, now Michigan is half a game ahead of Purdue. They're tied in the win column, and they have one less loss. So now it's like Purdue doesn't control its own destiny. If Purdue would have won last night, they would have controlled their own destiny regardless of what Michigan State did. So, like, that's why it's frustrating because personally, like, sitting here as a Purdue fan, I don't think they're going to lose again until the Big Ten tournament. I genuinely don't. I don't. I think that was their last loss in the regular season, and I just hope they get some help. I looked at Michigan's schedule; they should drop at least one more. But
That's tough.
seeing like as for Purdue to be outright champions, they're going to need Michigan to lose two more games, and they're going to have to win out, or Michigan to lose.
Does Michigan have that tiebreaker if the records come back even?
They would just split. They would just split the title because it's
Yeah, the
1-1
Big Ten just splits it.
which is why it sucks because Purdue beat them by like 40 at home, and then we go and lose, don't play very well, and still only lose by 2 in a row.
You guys need to figure out how to pick up Mackey Arena and take it everywhere you go. Like,
Well, that's one thing I wanted to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about later in this episode because there is a certain location in the Sweet 16 Elite Eight that could come into play for Purdue. That
Talk about it now. Where is it in Indiana?
Lucas Oil Stadium is hosting the Midwest Sweet 16 Elite Eight. I think if Purdue gets in the Midwest region,
They're going to a stadium for the Elite Eight?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They haven't done that since like 2014 when Trey Burke hit that shot.
I know.
Yeah,
and
right.
and that's what I'm saying. Like, if as Purdue just gets in the Midwest and they just get to the second weekend, you're talking 85,000 Purdue fans in a stadium.
Well, for that to happen, Purdue needs to be the best 2 seed so they can kind of control their destiny.
Which also goes into my next point because Saturday on CBS, right before Purdue plays Wisconsin, is the top 16 revealed by the committee.
Yep.
So we'll finally get a little bit of clarity here on kind of those first 4 seed lines. So what are you guys looking forward to in that kind of maybe what are you looking forward to this weekend and in that reveal? What do you expect?
How many SEC teams are in the first are 1 and 2 seeds? So I think the SEC will end up getting 3 1 seeds, and it's just between Florida and Tennessee for that last 1 seed. But I think it's really interesting. Like, what do you do with Texas A&M? Like, are they a solid 2 seed? Are they the last 2 seed? You know, I don't think Tennessee's very good. Like, are they the second last 2 seed? Like, are they firmly on the 2 line? And you know, and then how many SEC teams are in there? Frankly, because those 5 will be there, and then does Ole Miss sneak in to a 4? You know, Ole Miss has picked up some really big time wins. You guys know I'm high on Ole Miss. Like, could Ole Miss sneak in to that last 4 seed? So that's that's one of the things I'm looking out for. And you know, what do they do with the Michigan schools too? Like, I don't think Michigan State is any good, frankly, and I've been saying this for quite a while now. Like, is Michigan State a 3 seed when it comes out tomorrow or on Saturday? Is Michigan, you know, a top 16 team when it comes out tomorrow? You know, those are kind of the things that I'm looking out for.
Yeah, I there's a few things about both what you guys both said. I look at Michigan's remaining schedule, Tanner, and truthfully, like, with how bad I think Michigan State is and with how not great I think Michigan is in their remaining schedule, I think Purdue controls their own destiny, frankly, because Michigan still plays Michigan State twice, which no matter if I think both those teams are fraudulent, I think it's a good matchup. I think it's a good game because I think it's two teams that aren't like phenomenal. I think they still play Maryland. I think they still play Rutgers. Like, the Big Ten is not the SEC in terms of like, we're going to go win 23 games or 25 games, right? Like, the Big Ten's just going to have good records. They're going to be sitting in the 4, 5, 6. I mean, there's going to be a lot of Big Ten teams that have 3 to 7 seeds, 3 to 6 seeds. And like, there are teams that I do think could beat anybody and make a second round matchup maybe a nightmare for somebody. So I think Purdue wise, obviously I'm never going to sit here and think that they're like unbelievable. But this ideology that I've always said with Purdue the last few years of, well, they have inexperienced guard play, that's gone out the window. They have very experienced guard play that's playing very well. And frankly, Kaufman-Rent's been way better than I thought he could have been. So Purdue's got themselves a squad. My question just comes down to when they're not at Mackey, you know, they're definitely still a good team. They compete with anybody, but obviously that effect of playing at home helps, you know, immensely. In terms of the committee and what I'm looking for, I'm praying that Kansas won't be in the top 16.
They're
I'll
good.
be curious. I think if they're in it, they're going to be 16, frankly, 15, 16. I just don't think they're good enough to be in the top, the initial top 16. Um, Another team, I'm not high on A&M. I don't know what about them. I think maybe they're
I'm with you. They and there's I'll tell you why, because I've watched a lot of A&M the last few years.
Yeah.
They play a very unique style where they more than anyone in the country rely on offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
And Wade Taylor, who's a great player, feels like he's been in college forever. He
Yeah.
goes cold more than any star player on any team that's going to be a top 4 seed. I mean, the amount of times where he's and the amount of times where he gives you a 4 for 15. Like last night against Georgia, him and Zeke Phillips were combined 1 of 11 until like the 12-minute mark of the second half. And frankly, against good teams, that can't happen. And so I'm with you. There's a few teams I'm completely out on. I'm not in on Michigan. I despise their guard play. There's a reason why Trey Donaldson transfers from Auburn. It's because it wasn't going to play. Like Trey Donaldson would get no minutes right now at Auburn. Auburn has 4 guards that are better than him, and he starts for Michigan to just kind of put it in perspective. Burnell transferred from Alabama 2 years ago. He wouldn't play at Alabama right now. I know he's more of a wing, but guards win in March unless you have a Zach Edey, which is an exception or a player of that ilk. That's why Auburn,
this year.
that's why Auburn concerns me making a deep run. They have way too many lulls that they don't have a difference maker at guard. Denver Jones, I don't think is any good. And I'm not saying I'm out on Auburn. If Auburn wins a national championship, that would not surprise me one bit. I don't like Michigan State. I am telling you, when you don't have a bona fide go-to guy, that is problems. I know Richardson's had some good games for them, and I know they still have Atkins, who was there the last time they made a run. But we're talking about, we saw in the UCLA game, who are you going to give the ball to at the end of the game? First of all, they shouldn't be shooting a 3. Like Indiana played a 2-3 zone and they won the game yesterday, frankly, because of it. So
because he doesn't care, he's leaving, so he's like, I'm just going to go zone him.
Yeah. Is there? So I mean, that's a good question for you guys. Like, is there any teams that you guys are out on?
Yeah.
There's several for sure.
And I'm glad you brought up Texas A&M, but I'm out on Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee has a number 1 scoring option that I trust. I think Chaz Lanier is leading them in scoring, but he has nights where he looks lost. Like he just looks lost.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you guys mentioned Texas A&M a little bit, because I actually think that's a team that I like a lot this year in March because of how hot Wade Taylor can get. I think he can have a Carson Edwards type run. I'm not saying Texas A&M is going to go be in the Final Four or anything, but depending on their matchup, Texas A&M is going to go deep in the tournament because they have Wade Taylor. He's still a stud. But I think Tennessee, I wanted to say this. I think there's 5 teams in the SEC better than Tennessee. Genuinely. Like I would Auburn, Florida, Bama, for sure better than Tennessee. I think Kentucky's better. I think A&M's better. And I think by the time the tournament hits, Arkansas will be better. I think Arkansas is going to go on.
They got to figure some stuff out. But real quick, I want to say this point, and I'm interested to see you guys' opinion on this. Tanner, you saying where the second weekend was, right here on my phone, I'm just like looking up where all the tournament sites are. And I think there's a significant advantage if you're a Florida, if you're a Tennessee, if you're an Iowa State going for that last 1 seed, to be the first 2 seed. So let me say this. The West Regional, do you guys know where it is? Tanner might know where it is.
San Francisco.
It's in San Francisco. That is 5.5 hours away from Gainesville.
Yeah.
If the Florida is the number 1, 2 seed, guess where you get to go instead? You get to go to Atlanta. Florida has a massive fan base in the Jacksonville, Atlanta kind of area. And if you're Iowa State, would you rather go to San Francisco or would you rather go to Atlanta or New Jersey? Same with Tennessee. So, it's just something to think about logistically.
Locations matter, and they've been proven to matter. Truthfully, you can just watch the lulls that some teams might start in the first 10 minutes of the game. Well, frankly, because they're 1,500 miles away, right? And that's just the truth, which is why I mentioned earlier, like we need to have a centralized location for a national championship and not send them out to Salem.
Well, there's a reason. I don't think there's ever been a national championship in the West Coast, at least recently. Like Phoenix isn't Cal. I'm talking like California, Portland, Seattle.
Wasn't there one in maybe like San Diego?
There might have been a Seattle one too, but in the last 25 years, they have not gone past Phoenix. I'm looking at this. And it's really interesting. They don't really have a southern location. Normally Orlando gets a region. Tampa gets one sometimes. They'll go to Jacksonville occasionally. The southernmost region in the first weekend is either Lexington or Raleigh. Like that, I mean, look, this stuff goes into place like 5-6 years advance, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
find that really particular, and especially in a year where the SEC has been as dominant as it is, that if Auburn gets that one seed, I mean, where do they go? Raleigh, Lexington. You're going to go play at Rupp. Rupp has one of the first weekends,
Yeah.
so it's
It's
just
really cool. That's awesome. I
yeah.
love those.
So
I will
so yeah,
say one team that we haven't mentioned, and I mentioned them when we talked about conference predictions. And truthfully, like I think all of those teams that you guys have mentioned, I agree with the Tennessee. I think Florida can win a national championship. I think Auburn can. I think Alabama can. I definitely think Duke can. But my favorite right now is none of those. Like Houston, in my opinion, is my favorite to win the national championships right now. Johnny and I love teams that can guard. I know Tanner does too, but let's not act like Houston doesn't have. They're not this team that only guards, right? We talked about it with football. We talked about it with basketball. Like they can score too. They got LJ Cryer. Like this is his 14th year in college basketball. Like he can score. I think he's definitely leading them in points. I like the veteran. I like the veterans, right? In March, veterans matter. People that have been there matter. Houston's been there. They've done that. All these guys have played in huge games. I like Houston. Now, are they going to get a one seed? No, they're not. But they're going to be maybe like the third 2 seed team, maybe the second 2 seeder, and I think they're going to be a team that can make a really, really, really long run. Obviously, it's not a hot take because it's a 2 seed, but it's a team that I don't think is getting any action. I think Houston's a really, really good team, and I would definitely take them above, Tennessee, above. I don't know. I mean, they're above everybody else, but like A&M, they suck. Like I don't know. Like
I will say this: A&M is better this year than they have in the last 2 years. I
yeah,
mean, Tanner, you saw A&M firsthand. They handled Purdue pretty handily. I mean, look, if A&M made an Elite Eight, I wouldn't be like, oh my goodness, A&M, like
right.
we're so wrong. But James, I think it's so important for a team to have a go-to guy down the stretch.
Yeah.
If you go down the list, Auburn, you got Janai Broom. As much as I don't like that guy to be a big man, especially Janai Broom, I watched a lot of Auburn this year, man. That ankle still looks as bothering him, and maybe he tweaked it against Florida. But man, his lift is not the same as what it was. Number 2, Alabama. Pick one. Mark Sears. They got Youngblood. They got Grant Nelson, who won them a game in the tournament last year. You go to Florida. Walter Clayton Jr. is somehow the most underrated player in the country. He should be a first-team All-American with Braden Smith and whoever else you want to put. Braden Smith, Cooper Flagg, Janai Broom, and then it should be Walter Clayton Jr. Like, he has been beyond incredible for a Florida team that no one preseason thought was going to be this good. And then keep going down. Then you got Cooper Flagg, and you keep going. So that's my only problem with Houston. They don't have a guy. You say LJ Cryer, but he's never really been that in his career, and
Right.
he's a really nice player. He's going to give you 12 points a game, 13 points a game. Emmanuel Sharp's nice players from the
Yeah.
Tampa Bay area. Is going to give you 12 points a game. Their best guy is the 6-year big guy, who I'm blanking on his name. That
Roberts
killed, Roberts.
Yeah.
That killed Kansas. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think having multiple guys you can go to like count and trust to get a bucket late in games, that's honestly what you look for in a team that's going to make a run in March. And that's what's going to separate, an Iowa State from a Duke if they play in the Elite Eight. Like Duke's going to have multiple guys. You got Proctor, you got Flagg, you got Conknippel. Iowa State has a dude. Like they have
They got two. They got two. Gilbert and Jones.
Right. But like when Duke has more of those guys than Iowa State, that's what it comes down to. And I hate talking about Purdue so much, but that's why I think Purdue's going to go pretty far, is because they have two for sure. And there's some nights where Fletcher Lawyer is going to go and hit a big shot for him. So like that's honestly what it comes down to in March. You guys are right. Like it comes down to how many difference makers do you have with the ball in their hands, needing a bucket. That's what it comes down to in the tournament. And kind of one more thing I want to hit on here, and I'm excited for, is this Duke Illinois game coming up, because me personally, I think Duke's legit. They have all the pieces. I think them playing in the ACC over the last month and a half, and outside of Illinois the last month, is really going to hurt them come tournament time. They're not getting tested by the type of teams they're going to see in the NCAA tournament, which when you haven't seen those teams in a couple months, it's really, really going to hurt your ability to win games in the winner go home scenario. So I think this Duke Illinois game is big for both teams. Illinois is trying to get back on track. They have all the talent. Um, and Illinois, maybe the Big Ten's kind of out of play, but at this point, if you're Illinois, you're just trying to win some games, figure out what you have rotationally, figure out the pieces that you want playing 30 minutes a night, and just go play ball. Just go beat a really good team, get some confidence back, because Illinois can go far. They have a ton of talent. Their point guard, I can't pronounce his last name, but like he's an NBA guy. Like,
Yakuchonis, whatever they say.
yeah, he's
Okay.
an NBA guy. So like having that in the tournament, like that makes you feel pretty good about being able to win a close game, having a bucket getter like that. So this is a big game for both teams. It's kind of rare to see an out of conference matchup like this. But this is a huge test for Duke. Like I think Duke needs a test outside of ACC play, and it's big for Illinois to get back on the right track. So that's a game I'm excited for. I'm glad that they scheduled it. Like it's weird, but like when you think about it, this is a high level matchup. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, when the schedule came out and when Illinois was playing, on Thanksgiving, right? They play Arkansas on Thanksgiving, something like that. I don't know. And then next thing you know, you're playing Duke at MSG. Like that's amazing. And then you look when that game is and you're like mid-February and you're like, "Oh, okay. Like this is like a get locked in for March kind of game, And yeah, Illinois, I think they're 3 games back, of the Big 10 regular season. It's not going to happen, frankly. It's probably not going to happen. The problem with Illinois, and I was talking about it yesterday, and they were talking about the game against UCLA, and I'm like, I don't know what team's going to show up for Illinois. And yeah, they have guards, they've got dudes, but like they're 18, 19 years old. And frankly, yeah, Yakuchonis is an NBA player, but he's not right now. Like he shows his youth way too often for my liking. I just think they're very young. You look at a team, I think they have one senior, and it's the transfer from Evanston, Humberkiss or whatever. He's our only senior. So, but it's like this team's not going to be all tacked in next year. So I agree. There's 2 games I'm excited for. It's Duke and it's Purdue. Let's finish the regular season off strong, go into the Big Ten tournament. Who knows? Maybe run the table and win the tournament. You never know. Go for seeding. Buys are huge in that tournament. We've seen it before. And then, try to get yourself a top 5 seed. That's the goal, right? And I think my concerns are Brad Underwood. And so this is the first year where I've really admitted it, where I think Brad Underwood might be a limp for us. But yeah, excited. When your teams are at least competitive, it's fun. Obviously, you guys have 2 teams that are legitimate national championship contenders. So that's fun. But yeah, I tell you what, Backyard Banter could have a hell of a year if Notre Dame makes it to a natty. Odds that we get a natty out of you guys is pretty high. I mean, decent. It's March is crazy, and then who knows? Like the Cubs might win the World Series too. Like what a crazy year.
You mean the Rays? And it's almost baseball time. We're going to start doing some divisional breakdowns coming up here. I quickly want to talk about Florida before we get out of here because Florida had the most impressive 2-game stretch that they've had in the regular season. Frankly, since I've been really locked in as a fan, I've been incredibly impressed with this team, doing it without Elijah Martin. And I actually dove into some numbers. The Gators are actually a minus team with Elijah Martin on the court. Now, you want Elijah Martin on your team way often that when you don't. So, and that's where Walter Clayton came into play. He was spectacular against Auburn. What he did against Auburn, he was the best player on the court. And he did it in the second half with, I don't know if you guys watched the game, they had to anti-freeze his finger because he jammed down the ball. So he shot 3 shots in the second half. 7 assists in that second half against Auburn. Completely took over the game in a playmaking realm, which we haven't seen from Clayton, And then, Mississippi State's a really good team. Really good is an exaggeration. They're going to be a top 6 seed come March. They've had some big wins. They beat Ole Miss at home. And Florida went in there without Alex Condon, who got hurt, and Alex Condon was the reigning SEC Player of the Week. Alex Condon is going to be an NBA player. He's a really, really good player. And then he's gone with 19:30 left in the first half. And Florida comes out and goes on a 20-2 run to open the second half. That is elite level stuff. Florida has more of the kill runs. The kill runs, a 10-0 run or more of those than basically any team in the country. And, just seeing this and seeing that they have 4 guards. I mean, Denzel Aberdeen, 20 points last night. This is a guy that when Martin comes back, he's going to be off the bench. Tanner, you said you need a team that needs multiple options. Florida's got like 5 of them that they can throw at you and they can really score with. But the thing that has impressed me most, the change in Florida's defensive intensity from last year to this year has been incredible. They're one of 3 teams in the country that are top 10 in offense and defense. That's how good that they've been this year. And a lot of that's Elijah Martin came in and completely set the tone defensively. A lot of that's Will Richard, who has a 6'7" wingspan, who has, again, set the tone defensively. But now, they're going to be without Condon probably for a few weeks or a few games, I should say, with his ankle. Martin should be back. But, they got a favorable stretch. They went through their toughest stretch and went 3-1 with a loss at Tennessee. You take that when you're going to Auburn and going to Mississippi State in that stretch as well. Now they get South Carolina at home on Saturday. They get Oklahoma at home on Tuesday, and then they go to Georgia or to LSU. So should be 3 wins right there. And then they got Georgia on the horizon right there as well before they close with A&M and Ole Miss coming to the O-Dome. But I just so impressed with this team, so impressed with Todd Golden. And, I just had to say it because I haven't talked a lot of Florida basketball in an extended way on the podcast. But, just the jump that they've made last year, this year, and the depth that they've shown. I'm sure you guys don't know who Urban Klapsar is. But my God, he is 6 of his last 7 from 3. And he was a guy that a lot of people said he's going to raise his offensive ceiling because they keep saying that he played in the U20s with Slovenia. He played in a professional basketball league last year against former NBA players, and he's your 9th man. So Florida's deep, they're long, they're athletic. Oh yeah, and Tommy Howe. How about 19, 8 and 7 last night? That's 8 assists, by the way. He's the 7th man. So it's just it makes me. I love March Madness. I love when Florida's good. And shout out Todd Golden, and just shout out this team, man. They're super fun to watch.
Yeah. I think Florida. At this point, it's going to take something drastic for them to not be a 1 seed based off their
they can drop probably one more game in the regular season and still be safe.
Right.
But yeah,
you could argue that they have the best resume in the country, right now.
Outside of Auburn.
But even Florida, they beat Auburn. You know what I mean?
They have the best win in college basketball. Right. But Auburn has 12 quad 1 wins.
They do.
It's pretty ridiculous. Florida didn't have the non-con that they thought. But
I have been sniping Florida, in terms of games.
Plus money yesterday, by the way.
Games that I think they're going to win, drop. I said they were going to dub Tennessee. They did. I told Tanner that Tennessee was going to dub Florida. They did.
I saw that one coming.
I'm not going to say I picked Florida to beat Auburn, but I tell you what, if you're a Florida fan, you want me on your side. That's what I'm saying. You want me on your side. So.
Hey, man, good teams win, great teams cover.
We do, exactly.
Florida's been covered. But anyway, that was a fun episode. We're going to wrap it there. We'll be back next week. We'll probably start to do pitchers and couchers reported today. So we're going to start. Yeah, at least it did.
Cubs reported 5 days ago.
Well, they don't count since they play in Egypt or wherever they open the season. But
also known as Japan. But
I've heard it both ways. But we're gonna start with divisional races probably next week, and a lot of college basketball. I can guarantee you my grid next week will be a college basketball grid in some capacity. So anyway, if you guys made it this far, subscribe, like, and send it to someone, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.